In this episode, we're going to talk about subscriptions and add-ons in Microsoft 365. We all understand how the plans work, but with add-ons, it's a little bit more of a grey area. And when does the price start creeping up so much that it becomes too much? Stay tuned and we'll discuss it. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Andy here, Microsoft MVP, as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. You know, over the last few weeks, Microsoft have been releasing content faster than you can blink your eyes. We've got new features, of course, Microsoft Entra ID, replacing Azure Active Directory. We have a whole bunch of new features in Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Office 365, as well as Microsoft Purview, and of course, Microsoft Defender, or the security products. Now, a lot of these features start out in what we call public preview. And the public preview, it gives us an insight into what features are coming into Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Azure. And in recent times, these public previews are not being integrated into the products, but they're actually being offered as add-ons. Now, while many customers see this as really nothing new, I mean, if you think about it, if you buy a car or if you buy a piece of equipment, there is always an add-on sale. And ultimately, the question is, how much is too much are you willing to pay? So a good example recently was the announcement that Microsoft Copilot will come in at around $30 a month, US-based pricing, of course. Now, that's on top of your regular subscription. Now, considering that ChatGPT costs about $20 per month, you have to really kind of ask yourself, is it going to bring real value to the business? And again, if you're a marketing organization, again, the answer might be yes. Simple, it's going to be fantastic. But of course, again, that question is how much are you willing to spend every month? And with Microsoft security products, as well as things like Teams Premium, for some businesses, it's going to be a little too much. So what I thought I would do in this episode is we're going to take you through some of these add-on features, and I'm going to let you draw your own conclusions into whether you think they're worth the price or not. And I would love to know what you think. So make sure that you get your comments and your questions down below here. I think this will be an interesting debate. So I think without any further ado, let's jump in with some demos. Now, just before we do, remember, if you haven't subscribed, please bump the subscribe button, ring that bell, and come and join my learning community. I really do appreciate it. All right, so hope you enjoy, and remember, let me know what you think. So, first stop here is Microsoft Entra ID, aka Azure Active Directory, of course. This is the heart of everything that we do in both Microsoft Azure and Microsoft 365. Recently changing, we can now come into the Identity portal, and you can see that this is now Microsoft Entra. So as well as your Microsoft plans, so whether you're on a business premium or a business basic, of course, it's all to do with the license that you have. So you can see that they haven't updated the portal here, but they have elsewhere. So they're currently rebranding these portals. So this is Azure AD Premium P2, or as it's now known, Entra ID P2. So what's the difference? Well, there are essentially a number of different versions of the directory service. There's a free version, of course, that anybody can get, extremely limited, of course. You also get kind of the business version that comes with Microsoft 365. And of course, if you've got a business premium, you also get the P1 edition. So what is the P1 edition? Well, the big win-win, of course, is multi-factor authentication. And here in the security settings, of course, you also get additional things such as conditional access, which is a real winner. Now, if you've upgraded to the P2, you also get additional security features, which include things like identity protection, which is absolutely awesome. This is currently going through some changes at the moment, and there may be some add-ons which will come onto that later on. Now, in addition to this, if I come back to the main portal here, the other thing to note is that in the identity portal, if you go into the overview, you will also see that we have a workload license. This is where things start to get a little bit more confusing. So I'm here in the Microsoft Entra Workload ID portal here, and what we're going to do is have a quick look at the plans and pricing. And of course, here what we have are the 4 versions, or 3 versions traditionally, of course, of Azure Active Directory or Entra ID, as we know. As I mentioned, you've got the free version, you've got the P1 version, which comes with the E3 and also with things like Business Premium, and this gives you tools like conditional access. Awesome. We also have the P2 edition. This gives you additional features such as identity protection, of course, as well as some additional security features. And you can see that there is a bit of a difference. And this is one of those features that I've been talking about for a while. So this is the new Entra ID governance or governance portal, and this has been in public preview. And just last week, of course, this has now gone live, and you can see that you can purchase this as a standalone item, and you can see it's available for P1 and P2 customers. So the key thing here is that this is an add-on per user per month. Again, that's quite expensive. And of course, when you thought that the premium edition or P2 edition was the king of the hill, then you can see that it's essentially not. So there is an example. This is one of the first features that will feature this premium subscription. And in addition, we also have new product categories as well. So here, this just tells you about the verified ID. So we now have the verified ID, and of course you've also got permissions management as well. So this is the old CloudKnox tool that Microsoft purchased, and this is pretty darn expensive. Workload identities, so for example, if you've got servers running applications internally, you do get the identity protection, you do get conditional access for applications running on premises or in the cloud as well. So again, that just gives you a quick idea of some of those Entra plans and pricing. Finally, the last thing that was announced just recently is GSA, or this is the Global Secure Access Preview, currently being offered in 2 flavors. So you've got the Microsoft Entra Internet Access product, and you've got the Entra Private Access. And the idea of this is it replaces things like dedicated lines, things like direct access. So you've heard of direct access, always on connectivity. This is a way that you can offer that, but by using the Microsoft's global network of its data centers. Interestingly enough here, by the way, it talks about the internet access. This is currently only available in private preview, and there is nowhere that you can apply for that. So I'm afraid that that is not available yet. Now, in terms of pricing, of course, none of this has been announced yet, and you know that this is going to be an expensive one. So watch out for that in the not too distant future. Now, Microsoft Teams is turning into be a real ecosystem in its own right. But it's interesting that you can scroll down these menus now. You can come into things like meeting policies. And if I go into a meeting policy, everything looks good. But kind of halfway down the policy, you'll notice that we now have a number of premium features. Now, I'll be honest with you, a lot of these premium features are kind of somewhat cosmetic. Well, personally, I feel it's a little cheeky to be charging for some of these, but again, that's just my own opinion. So when we talk about Teams is a perfect example of where I think a vendor has gone a little bit OTT with the licensing, and it is really kind of confusing. So if I look here, for example, on the learn.microsoft.com page here, you can see in terms of meetings, in terms of Teams Premium, you get things like branding, organizational branding, meeting backgrounds, customize the together scenes, live translated captions, and you have to ask, are these really necessary as premium features? In terms of webinars, again, things like managing attendance view, kind of limiting the day and time. Some of these you just feel they should be in kind of the primary products. And interestingly, when you look at Teams especially, wow, this is a complex product. So not only do you need to license your users for Microsoft Teams, if you want the calling features of Teams, you know, the phone features, the PSTN or public switch telephone networks, then you do need to have the minimum of an E3 license. E3, also Business Premium now, that was added a little while back as well. So in essence, when we talk about voice, you have three options. You can either have a Microsoft hosted solution, if it's available in your region. You can have direct routing. So again, traditionally, if you want to manage this yourself, you can do that. Absolutely fine. And we also have the new Operator Connect. So the Operator Connect is an additional subscription, but you're not paying Microsoft this time. You're paying one of these Microsoft partners, which will provide not only the connectivity, but also the credits as well. And this is an ever increasing list. So this is really nice. So another interesting feature is the enhanced encryption feature, and this provides end-to-end call encryption. You can switch that on, and that's super important. The downside of that, of course, is you can't record calls. Microsoft have also extended this feature to meetings, so you can have end-to-end meeting encryption. But again, they've cheekily made this a premium feature. So again, that's an additional license that you're going to need to have. So there you go. That's Teams. So what else requires premium? Well, another product that goes from strength to strength, of course, is Microsoft Intune, aka the Intune Admin Center, or used to be known as the Endpoint Admin Center, after, of course, Microsoft's rebrand. So here in Microsoft Intune, of course, you can manage your devices, which is becoming increasingly popular now that more and more of us are moving to the cloud. So rather than using tools like group policy on premises, you can now manage your devices, deploy apps, and of course manage the security on those devices all in one neat little bundle. But again, everything is not entirely clear here. And of course, just because you have Intune doesn't necessarily mean that you have all the features. But one of the great things about Intune is that it manages not just Windows, iOS, macOS, Android, but now Chrome OS as well as tools like Linux. You can enroll devices into your organization, and of course you've got fantastic technologies like Autopilot, and you can also auto-deploy Apple devices as well. Now, in terms of additional things that you might want to purchase, of course, Windows 365. So you can use Azure Virtual Desktop. So again, if you want to provide remote desktop to your users, you can use AVD or Azure Virtual Desktop. Azure Virtual Desktop is essentially a pay-per-use model of subscription, and the other model is Windows 365. This is the Enterprise Edition, and again, the thing about this is per user. So once you subscribe, or once you assign licenses to users, essentially there are no time limits on this. And again, this is perfect for things like warehousing environments, call center environments, and things like that. And again, it does extend the life of kind of PCs. Now, if you browse for Intune add-ons, Intune comes again in a number of flavors, typically 3 flavors. Intune Plan 2 is the main suite, so if you're Business Premium, if you're E5, or if you have an EM&S, Enterprise Mobility and Security, you will get Intune. You can also purchase Intune as a standalone feature as well. But you can see here that just because you have a plan 2, there are features, things like endpoint privilege management and also specialized devices management that you do need to purchase an additional license for. Now, we also have the newly announced Intune Suite license, and this has brought a number of new features, including Microsoft Tunnel for mobile application management. This essentially means that you don't have to go through a separate VPN. So when the user opens up an application, the application opens up a VPN. And this is all done very stealthily. It's very clever. Things like remote help and managing specialty devices in Intune, all of these are essentially add-ons. Finally, one last thing just to mention here, of course, endpoint security, really super important, of course. Again, depending on your license. So things like Defender for Endpoint, of course, again, is potentially an additional license. So just be aware when you're researching or looking to assign licenses to your users, definitely do research and make sure that you assign the correct license to the correct person. And last but by no means least, I just want a quick word about security and compliance. So here, of course, in Microsoft Defender for 365, things are constantly changing and constantly evolving in here. With products constantly being added as well, and this is actually a good thing, because in the past, of course, if you had Defender for Cloud Apps, or if you had Defender for Endpoint, these were separate portals, and it really was just a tad annoying. So it's really nice to see Microsoft rolling everything up now into a single portal, which I think is really super nice. But again, do be aware here that there are, again, depending on the license that you're using, some of these features and functionality may not be available. For example, if you've got Cloud Apps or Defender for Cloud Apps as it's now known, again, do remember, again, you can see here, perfect example, it's an add-on feature. So depending on the license that you've got, you may need to go out and purchase that. I did have one comment on my website recently that says, why do Microsoft constantly bombard you and add these additional features on in the menus when it's something that you might not use? So maybe that's something to request. Actually, maybe in settings they could you could switch off some of these menu items. Maybe that's the answer potentially. Likewise in Microsoft Purview, of course, Microsoft Purview, of course, is the compliance tools, and you've got things like in compliance, you've got assessments, and you've got, of course, things like templates, which are now called regulations, of course. Keep renaming things, of course. And you can see here, free premium access templates available. And then, of course, you'll need to pay a little bit extra. Again, other examples here, things like insider risk management, privacy management, of course, subject rights requests. So with subject rights requests, you need to purchase, and you can either buy these individually, blocks of 10 or blocks of 100. And again, they do run into, fairly expensive things. Finally, just a quick word about Microsoft 365. Of course, again, depending on your license, you've got tools like PowerAutomate and PowerApps, absolutely fantastic tools. So do remember, depending on your license, it may include a number of runs or number of automations that you run. And again, if you're doing or processing a lot of these, of course, you may need to purchase additional runs or additional flows, depending on your license. So there you have it. You have to ask yourself when the price of your subscription Plus, these add-ons becomes too much for many businesses. And many businesses, of course, are already feeling the squeeze. Now, ultimately and eventually, maybe some of these features might start being integrated into more plans, or maybe we'll have some new plans. Who knows? We'll wait and see. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me this week. I really do appreciate it. And remember, if you haven't subscribed, then please bump the like button and the subscription button. Come and join my learning community, and comments and questions. I would love to know what you thought of this session. Please get those questions down below. All right, that's it for this time. You stay safe. I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.